If you're just getting into the competitive Pokemon TCG scene, the deck that you play is usually more important than your actual skill level if you are trying to win. So, what are some common mistakes? Is people end up picking decks that are way too complicated and they don't understand them. And if you don't understand your deck, you're not going to know what to do, and your opponent can definitely take advantage of that because if you don't know what you're doing, you usually don't do well. Another mistake is that you pick something that's too cheap, that's not good. You pick a deck like Alakazam or something that's not great at all. So, in this video, I'm going to break down three decks that I think are really good for beginners. One of the decks is more advanced than the other two, but the other two are just as strong. The other one just teaches you different skills than the other ones. Deck number 1. This deck is very straightforward. It's quite simple. It has one game plan, essentially. That is Gholdengo. Gholdengo EX, I guess, is the technical Pokemon thing. More specifically, Gholdengo Rocks is the deck that I think is best for people that are new to the game. Why do I think that? It is simple, it is straightforward, it is super consistent, so the game plan is very repeatable, as well as it's quite cheap these days. Well, what is the game plan for Gholdengo Rocks? Your game plan for turn 1 is to get a KO, a knockout, with a 1 prize board state. Now, what might that look like is a Soul Rock in the active, a Lunatone on the bench, ideally 2 Gimme Ghouls, and an Energy on the Soul Rock, and then you hit something that has 70 HP or less for a knockout and take 1 prize on turn 1. Once you do that, you're pretty set. From there on out, all you have to do is draw cards, evolve your Gimme Ghouls into Gholdengos, and take 2 prizes. Well, at least one. You're trying to get 2 prizes every turn from there on out, and win the prize race. If you have a single prize turn, ideally they can't take 2 prizes on in response to your 1 prize KO. So you'll be winning the prize race. Speaking of the prize race, that is exactly what Gholdengo will teach you. It'll teach you how to prize map properly, and the importance of getting a KO in a single prize board versus having a 2 prizer on your bench. And yeah, the importance of liabilities, especially. As well as it also teaches you resource management. One of the very most important resources in Gholdengo is your superior energy retrievals, and you can only play 4 of them, and you only have 4 of them, and you need to get energy from your discard back into your hand, and that is one of the best ways to do that, especially in the quantity that you need it. So playing superior energy retrieval makes a lot of sense, and it's quite important. So you have to keep track of those, and it'll teach you how to keep track of those, as well as keeping track of your energies. I'll put a list up here. This is just a list that I picked off of Limitless TCG that didn't seem too expensive and didn't have an insane number of tech cards that you won't know what to do with. The Hops Cramorant I'm not even sure what it's there for. But probably can replace it with either another energy or a consistency card. Would definitely be something to look into. The second deck that I recommend for beginners is Joltik Box. This deck is quite straightforward in its game plan. It is susceptible to bricking, however, so it's less consistent than Gholdengo, but it will also teach you different things than Gholdengo will, so it might be good to play a game or 2 on. So, what is the game plan for this deck? Essentially, turn 1, you want to bring a little Joltik guy into the active and use his attack for an energy, which accelerates effectively 4 energy to any of your benched Pokemon. So you can power up your bigger attackers like Pikachu and Iron Hands EX, or even a Mew EX, or Blood Moon Ursaluna, Iron Leaves, any of those guys. But ideally, your main attackers are Iron Hands and Pikachu EX. So those are usually the attackers that you want to set up in the beginning. So once you set up your attackers, your game plan is simply to take 2 prizes every single turn following that, while setting up your secondary attacker using cards like Crispin, and then attaching energies per turn. Per turn. Silly words being told, but whatever. So, that is the game plan. What will this teach you? It'll teach you the value of attackers. What each individual Pokemon brings to the table, and why in certain situations it's better to attack with an Iron Hands EX versus a Pikachu EX versus a Iron Leaves EX versus a Blood Moon Ursaluna EX versus Lily's Conflairy versus Mew EX. Yes, those were a lot of words. Yeah, but it will teach you what all of those mean, as well as it'll teach you the value of your bench spaces. There are a lot of Pokemon in this deck, and you only get 5 bench spaces, so you can't put liabilities onto the bench. You gotta be very, very clear of what Pokemon you want on the bench, what you want to set up, and that is something that you'll need to look into and be careful with in this deck. But it is a skill that you can practice with this deck, and I think you can get pretty good at figuring that out. Lastly, the deck that I recommend to beginners is Dragapult Dusknoir. Now, why I recommend this is because it teaches you something different than the other 2 decks. Now, this deck is more complicated than the other 2 decks. It has a higher skill ceiling, but a lower floor. Meaning, you can lose a lot of games on Dragapult Dusknoir pretty good. You can lose them pretty good. But why would I tell a beginner to play a complicated or a more complicated deck? Well, it teaches you a lot of things about tempo control and building your board state versus just taking prizes. This is a deck that will teach you slowing down the game, and prioritizing your setup is better than just attacking. This deck's main game plan is to use Badoo to item lock your opponent to slow them down. That's what you're going to be doing for the first couple turns while you are attaching energies and benching your Dreepies and evolving them up into Dracloaks, as well as your Duskulls into Dusklopses and Dusknoirs. Now, the importance of your Duskulls and Dusknoirs is to be able to boost the damage that your Dragapults can do. You're effectively going to end up trying to win the game in just 2 attacks from your Dragapult. Meaning, you're going to take 3 prizes per attack, ideally. Sometimes you'll take more or less in an attack. Like, sometimes you'll only take 1 prize and then the next turn take 5 prizes. But you're effectively trying to win the game in less attacks than your opponent, which is why it's okay to go behind. Especially since you are crippling your opponent's setup by preventing them from using items like their own Buddy Buddy Poffins or Ultra Balls to search out their own Pokemon. What does Dragapult Dusknoir teach you? It teaches you tempo. It teaches you the rate of play, and attachments for turn are important, as well as controlling your opponent's resources and what they can play. As well as it's not always the best play to take knockouts. Sometimes it's better to set up damage and take more KOs later than taking 1 KO now. So it teaches you different things than the Goldango and Joltik box deck. But those are all the 3 decks that I wanted to talk about and that I recommend to beginners that are just starting out playing competitively. And I think these are all pretty strong decks for new players. Dragapult especially is a strong deck, although it is a little bit more complicated than Joltik box and Goldango, but all 3 of the decks are really strong. If you go onto Limitless TCG and look up the top decks, you'll see that Goldango is actually the #1 most played deck right now, and that's for a reason. It is very straightforward and really, really strong. So, yeah. Put these decks together, find something that's more consistent than the tech cards, especially if you don't know what all of the cards do. Sometimes it's better to play a list with all cards that you know what do and stick to the game plan than playing something like a Hops Cramorant for funsies because some other pro player played it and you might not know what it does. If you want, I can do some gameplay videos or tabletop videos of these decks if you guys want some more understanding of what they can do. I will try to do that. Anyway, here was our previous video that we did, YouTube end card. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.